Have you ever felt your heart stop not from fear but from recognition? That's what happened to David Parker, a man who could buy almost anything in the world except the love he lost years ago. David was not born rich. He grew up in a cramped apartment with peeling wallpaper and a leaky roof. His father worked double shifts at a factory. His mother juggled part-time jobs just to keep food on the table. David swore that one day he would rise above it all, and he did. Through sheer determination, long nights of work, and ruthless ambition, he became one of the most successful real estate moguls in the city. By 45, David owned towers of glass and steel, penthouses with panoramic views, and a fleet of cars most men only dreamt of. But behind the polished suits and million-dollar smile, he carried an emptiness that no wealth could fill. That emptiness had a name: Laura. Laura was the woman he had once believed to be his forever. She was not drawn to his money because when they met, he barely had any. They had crossed paths at a gallery when David was still a struggling investor. She was an artist, hands stained with paint, her hair tied back carelessly, her laughter like music. David was instantly captivated. Unlike the world that demanded numbers and deals, Laura demanded honesty, kindness, and love. Their romance was the kind people write novels about: candlelit dinners that lasted until sunrise, long drives with no destination, whispered promises in the quiet of the night. Within a year, they were married. But life is cruel in ways love cannot always survive. David's empire began to grow, and with it came endless hours at the office, trips abroad, phone calls at midnight. Laura tried to understand, but the woman who once painted sunsets now spent nights staring at cold dinners and empty chairs. Their conversations turned to arguments. Their silences grew heavier. One night, after a fight that left both of them broken, Laura packed her bags. Her last words still haunted David. "I don't need your money, David. I needed you." And just like that, she was gone. The divorce papers came quietly, and then she disappeared. No calls, no letters, no trace. For years, David lived with her ghost, until the day it happened. It was a rainy afternoon. David stepped into a luxury boutique downtown, planning to buy a gift for a business associate. He barely looked around the shop, was just another glittering cage of wealth.
Ow.
But then a voice spoke. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you with anything?" David turned, and the world tilted. The saleswoman standing there wasn't just familiar, she was identical to Laura. The same hazel eyes that once melted him. The same delicate smile. The same way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. For a moment, David thought he was hallucinating. His throat tightened. "Laura," he whispered, almost inaudible. The saleswoman blinked. "I'm sorry," shook his head quickly, trying to mask the storm inside him. "Nothing. I'm just looking." But as she guided him through perfumes and ties, David's hands trembled. Her name tag read Claire. And though she seemed younger than Laura would be now, every fiber of David's being screamed that fate was playing a cruel trick on him. When he left the store, the rain had stopped, but his heart was still in chaos. He had built towers that touched the sky, but now he wondered if he was about to uncover a secret that could bring his world crashing down. David Parker was not a man who repeated himself. He closed deals once, signed contracts once, made decisions once. His time was far too valuable to waste circling back. And yet 3 days after his strange encounter at the boutique, he found himself standing once more before its glass doors, heart pounding like a nervous boy. He told himself it was business, he needed another gift. But deep down, he knew it was something else. He needed to see her again. He needed to confirm whether what he had witnessed that rainy afternoon had been a figment of grief or something real. The bell above the door chimed as he stepped inside. And there she was, Claire. Polished, professional. Her smile bright as she greeted him. "Welcome back, sir." That smile. It was Laura's smile. David fumbled for words. "Yes, I wanted to look at cufflinks this time." Claire guided him toward a display, her presence unnerving him more than he cared to admit. The way she moved, the softness in her tone, even the tilt of her head, it was like Laura reborn. Yet she seemed younger, perhaps in her late 20s. Too young to be Laura herself. She laid out the cufflinks. David studied her carefully. "So, Claire, have you been working here long?" She looked up, surprised by the small talk. "About 4 years now. Before that, I was working retail in another city." "Which city?" he pressed. She hesitated briefly, then answered, Chicago. David's breath caught. Chicago, the very city Laura had vanished to after the divorce. According to vague whispers he had once heard but never confirmed. Coincidence? It had to be coincidence. And yet, he bought a pair of cufflinks he didn't need just to extend the conversation. But when he left the boutique, he carried more questions than answers. Over the next 2 weeks, David returned several times. Each visit he found an excuse eyes, watches, perfumes. And each time Claire's presence pulled at him like a magnet he couldn't resist. One evening, as she was packaging his purchase, David asked, Do you ever feel like you belong to a different life? Claire chuckled softly. That's a strange question. I mean, he clarified, do you ever feel like there's a missing piece? Something you can't quite explain? Her smile faltered. For a brief moment, her eyes clouded with something raw. Every day, she admitted quietly. Sometimes I feel like I'm searching for something or someone, and I don't even know who. David's throat tightened. He recognized that loneliness. It was the same hollow ache Laura had left in him. Before he could stop himself, he blurted, You remind me of someone I once loved, someone I lost. Claire looked at him curiously, almost cautiously. An ex. David exhaled slowly. There was a flicker in her eyes, a strange recognition, though she quickly masked it with a polite smile. I see. Well, life has its way of surprising us, doesn't it? That night, David couldn't sleep. He sat in his penthouse, surrounded by glass and steel, staring at old photographs. There was Laura, standing on the balcony of their first apartment, sunlight in her hair. There she was again, laughing at a picnic. And there, in a faded frame, Laura on their wedding day, eyes shining, smile radiant. The resemblance to Claire was undeniable, but logic screamed at him. Laura would be older now, not in her 20s. And yet Claire wasn't simply similar. She was identical, down to the smallest mannerisms. Was it possible Laura had a sister, a daughter, a secret she had never shared? The questions clawed at him until dawn. By morning, David knew one thing for certain. He had to find out who Claire really was. The next day, he returned once more. After the boutique closed, he waited by the sidewalk until Claire emerged, her hair loose, her coat buttoned against the evening chill. For a moment, David felt guilty. This wasn't like him following someone, but his desperation drowned out hesitation. He trailed her discreetly as she walked down the block, stopped at a modest diner, and slipped inside. Through the window, David saw her sit at a booth, pulling out a worn notebook. She wasn't meeting anyone. She simply sat alone, writing. Curiosity gnawed at him. Who was she writing to? What secrets lay in those pages? As he watched from across the street, one thought consumed him. If Claire was somehow tied to Laura, then maybe, just maybe, fate was giving him a second chance he never expected. But David also knew this path could lead to heartbreak. Two truths he wasn't ready to face. And yet, as he stared at Claire's silhouette through the diner window, he realized he had no choice. 'Cause once a ghost comes back to life, you can't just walk away. David couldn't stop thinking about Claire. Every waking moment, her image haunted him, the tilt of her head, her laughter, the faint echo of Laura's voice hidden within hers. He had always prided himself on control. Business deals, investments, life decisions, he ruled them all. But here, in front of this saleswoman, he felt powerless. Finally, David decided he needed answers. He started by asking casual questions, trying not to alarm her. So, Claire, do you have family nearby? She shook her head. Not really. I've lived on my own for years. My parents. Never really knew them. Her words struck a chord deep inside him. The same void that had lingered after Laura's disappearance? Were you adopted? He asked gently, careful not to push too far. Claire's eyes widened slightly. Yes. I've known since I was a child, but my parents never gave me details. Most records are, well, missing. David felt a chill run down his spine. His heart raced. Could it really be possible? Could this mysterious young woman, whose very essence mirrored Laura, be connected to the woman he loved and lost so long ago? He wanted to believe, yet logic screamed that it was impossible. Laura had vanished years ago. She had left him, vanished, disappeared into thin air. How could a daughter now stand before him, unknowingly carrying her mother's features? Still, David couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at him. Fate, coincidence, or something else? He had to find out. Over the next few days, David quietly investigated. He hired private researchers to track adoption records, cross-reference dates, and piece together Claire's history without alarming her. Each discovery deepened the mystery. Claire had been placed in foster care as an infant. Her birth certificate was missing crucial details. Her adoption records had been handled by a small, underfunded agency that had closed years ago. But one detail stood out. Her biological mother's name, Laura Parker. David's pulse raced. Couldn't be a coincidence. He sat in his penthouse, surrounded by luxury and silence, staring at the documents. The handwriting on the old forms, the dates, the faint stamps from distant offices, they all pointed to one impossible truth. His mind flashed back to the rainy day in the boutique. Claire's voice, her eyes, the tilt of her hair. Laura was alive in her daughter. Somehow, against all odds, life had found a way to return a part of the woman he loved through this young saleswoman. David knew he had to approach the subject delicately. One evening, after buying another gift he didn't need, he invited Claire for coffee, explained that he had been curious about her background, gently probing without revealing everything. Claire was cautious, but something in David's demeanor convinced her to speak. She shared fragmented memories of her childhood, her adoption, and the strange void she had always felt. She admitted to dreaming of a life she couldn't explain, often imagining a father she never knew. David listened, his heart breaking and soaring at the same time. Every word, every pause, every hesitation seemed to echo memories of Laura. And yet, she wasn't Laura. She was Claire, a separate person, with her own experiences, her own life. Still, a seed of hope had been planted. Then came the twist. One evening, Claire casually mentioned a keepsake, a small locket she had inherited from her biological mother. It was delicate, engraved with initials. LP. David's hands shook as he reached for his wallet. He pulled out a photograph of Laura, decades old. The resemblance was uncanny. Not just in features, but in the expression, the posture, even the tiny quirks of her smile. Tears welled in David's eyes. His voice trembled as he said, "Claire, may I see the locket?" She hesitated, then handed it over. David examined it carefully. The engraving, the delicate filigree, the faint scratches, it was the same locket Laura had worn years ago in the photographs. At that moment, David knew, without a shadow of doubt, Claire was Laura's daughter. His daughter. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt, electrifying his heart and shattering years of solitude and grief. But he also knew this was delicate territory. Claire had no idea who her biological father was. She had no reason to suspect the truth. And yet David felt he could not wait another day to reveal it. The air between them grew heavier, with unspoken questions. David realized the next step would require courage to tell the truth, and courage to face whatever emotions followed. David left the boutique that night, the locket clutched in his hand, rain soaking his coat, mind racing. He walked through the quiet streets of the city, thinking of Laura's laugh, her eyes, the years of lost time. And now the chance to reclaim part of his life through Claire. Every street lamp, every echo of distant voices reminded him, sometimes. Life gives back what it took away, but it does so in ways more profound and complex than one could ever imagine. David made a silent vow. Tomorrow, he would speak. Tomorrow, the truth would come out. And whatever happened after that, joy, shock, tears, grit would be the beginning of something real. Something that money could never buy. Family. The following morning, David woke before sunrise. The city below his penthouse was quiet. The skyscrapers reflecting the pale light like sentinels of a world he had once conquered. But all he could think about was Claire, the woman who looked exactly like Laura. The daughter he might have been unknowingly searching for all these years. He knew he had to approach her carefully. A revelation like this could shatter her world, yet every fiber of his being demanded honesty. He decided to spend one last day observing, learning, and preparing. At the boutique, David greeted Claire with a warm smile, though his heart pounded. "Good morning, Claire," he said, voice calm yet edged with emotion. "Morning, sir. Did you sleep well?" she asked innocently. Her casual tone made his chest ache. How could someone so familiar feel so distant at the same time? He forced himself to focus. Thank you. How's the day looking?" As the day passed, David found himself drawn to her laugh, the way she interacted with customers, even the small gestures of kindness she extended to her coworkers. It was all Laura, the same warmth, the same gentle presence, but in Claire, it was unspoiled by years of heartbreak. He realized he wasn't just fascinated by her resemblance to Laura, he was drawn to her humanity, her resilience, her spirit. And yet the knowledge of what she might be to him, his daughter, made each interaction heavier, more poignant. After the boutique closed, David suggested a quiet walk. The air was crisp, tinged with the smell of rain-soaked pavement. Claire hesitated. "Are you sure this is necessary?" she asked. "Yes," David replied. "I just want to talk." They strolled in silence for a while, watching streetlights flicker on, reflecting in puddles. The quiet gave David courage. He spoke gently. "Claire, have you ever wondered about your past? About the family you were born into?" She nodded slowly. "Every day. Sometimes I dream of a home, parents, a father, but when I wake up, it's gone. It's just a dream." David's eyes filled with tears. He wanted to tell her everything at once, to spill the truth, but he restrained himself. Instead, he said softly, "Sometimes. Dreams aren't as far from reality as they seem." Her gaze lifted, curious yet cautious. "Claire," he continued, choosing words with care, "I know this may sound impossible, but I think you might be connected to someone I loved very deeply." Her eyebrows furrowed. "What do you mean?" He paused, fighting the lump in his throat. "I believe your mother was someone very dear to me, someone I lost years ago. And somehow, someway, you might be her daughter." Claire stopped mid-step, staring at him. Her hand went to her mouth. I don't understand." "You don't have to understand yet," David whispered. "I just need you to know that I care, and that I want to find out the truth with you. Slowly, carefully, together." Over the next few weeks, David and Claire spent more time together. He arranged casual outings under the pretext of mentoring or teaching her about business, but their moments were filled with unspoken questions and tentative emotional bonding. Claire began to feel a strange familiarity around David, though she didn't know why. It wasn't just his kindness or patience, it was something deeper. A sense of belonging she had never known, a presence that felt like home. And David, for the first time in years, allowed himself to experience joy without walls. He laughed again, not at a boardroom joke, but at Claire's stories, her clumsiness, her candid observations about life. He felt the warmth of connection he had long believed was gone forever. But despite these moments of closeness, tension simmered beneath the surface. David wrestled with guilt. How could he introduce the possibility of truth without scaring her? And Claire struggled with her own conflicted emotions. Why did this man feel like family, yet so completely a stranger? Then came a small, unexpected twist. Claire, while sorting through some old documents she had found in her adoptive home, discovered a faded photograph. It was her mother, Laura, standing beside a man whose features mirrored David's almost perfectly. The revelation shook her. Questions she had buried for years surged forward. Could this stranger be the father she had dreamed about in her nights of longing? Could this man, whose kindness she had only recently begun to trust, actually be connected to her past? When she confronted David, her voice trembled. I found something today. A photo of my mother and a man. I don't know why, but he looks familiar. And you," David felt his heart leap. This was the moment he had waited for, proof that she was ready to face the truth. "Claire," he said softly, "I think it's time we discovered the truth together. Whatever comes, we'll face it as a family." Her eyes welled with tears, a mix of fear, hope, and longing. "Family," she whispered. David reached out, taking her hand gently. "Yes, family, and I promise, I will never let you go." In that moment, the bond between them solidified. Not yet fully revealed, but rooted in trust, recognition, and the invisible thread of shared destiny. The first real step toward healing the wounds of the past, and perhaps toward finding the miracle life had hidden for them both. The following morning, David couldn't eat. He sat in his penthouse, staring out at the city that had once symbolized his triumph, now feeling emptier than ever. Claire's discovery of the photograph had shifted everything. This was no longer a gentle suspicion. It was reality calling him to face the truth. He arranged to meet her at a quiet cafe, the kind with small tables tucked away in corners, away from prying eyes. He wanted a space where words could flow without interruption, where emotions could breathe. Claire arrived first, a bundle of nerves and anticipation. Her hands clutched the photograph tightly, her knuckles white. When David entered, she looked up, and their eyes met. In that instant, the years of longing, fear, and curiosity converged into one electric current. "Claire," he began softly, "I think it's time we talk." "Everything." She nodded, unable to speak, her eyes searching his. David took a deep breath. "The woman in that photograph, your mother, was someone I loved very deeply. I thought I had lost her forever. And you," he paused, swallowing hard, "you are her daughter." "My daughter." For a moment, the world stopped. Claire's grip on the photograph loosened, and her eyes widened in shock. The words swirled around her like a storm she had never expected. Her breath caught. You're saying you're my father?" David nodded, tears brimming. "Yes. I've spent years searching for you, not knowing if you existed, not knowing if I'd ever have the chance to make things right." Claire sank into her chair, overwhelmed. Her mind raced, questions, doubts, and memories all colliding. She thought of the nights she had dreamed of a father she never knew, of the emptiness she had carried, of the fleeting feelings of belonging she had experienced around him in the past weeks. Could this stranger truly be the man she had imagined for so long? David reached out, his hand trembling, and gently touched hers. "I understand if this is too much," he said, "but I promise we will face this together. I only want to be part of your life, to be there for you in every way I can." Tears streamed down Claire's face. I don't know what to feel. Everything I thought I knew, it's changing, and that was okay." David didn't expect her to understand immediately. What mattered was honesty, trust, and the willingness to step into the unknown together. Over the next days, they went through documents, photographs, and old records, piecing together Claire's early life. Each revelation confirmed what they had both feared and hoped. The timing, the locations, the names, they all fit perfectly. The missing years of Claire's childhood, the mystery of her adoption, the longing she had felt, everything led back to David and Laura. Claire learned how her mother, Laura, had disappeared after their divorce, carrying her unborn child away in secrecy to protect her. The adoption agency, overwhelmed and underfunded, had failed to keep accurate records, leaving Claire to grow up with a fragmented past. David listened as she recounted her journey, the foster homes, the adoptive family, the moments of loneliness, the dreams of a father she never knew. Every word pierced him, a mix of sorrow and awe. His child had endured so much, yet she had grown into someone strong, kind, and full of life. And now, finally, they had found each other. The first real embrace came unexpectedly. One evening, after they had spent hours reviewing old letters and photographs, Claire looked up at David, her eyes wet but resolute. I think I understand now," she said. David nodded, emotions spilling over. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything. Just let me be here." She did. Their hug was long, unbroken, and filled with years of loss and longing. In that moment, the walls both of them had built around their hearts crumbled. There were no words, only the silent understanding that life had given them a second chance. For David, it was redemption, a chance to be the father he had never been. For Claire, it was belonging the family she had always dreamed of, now finally within reach. The days that followed were filled with cautious but joyful exploration. Dave introduced Claire to the life he had built not as a display of wealth, but as a home, a safe place, a family. Together, they walked through his penthouse, the city's skyline stretching beyond, talking about everything they had missed. They laughed, cried, and shared stories, some mundane, some monumental. Slowly, the bond between them deepened, transforming from tentative curiosity to profound love and trust. David realized something he had never understood before. Family isn't just blood. It's connection, care, and the willingness to be there through pain and joy alike. And with Claire, he found all of it. multiplied by the miracle of fate. As they sat together one evening, the city lights reflecting in their eyes, David spoke softly. Life is unpredictable. It can take, it can break, but sometimes it gives back more than we ever dreamed possible. Claire nodded, tears in her eyes, but a smile on her lips. I think I finally believe that, she whispered. And in that quiet, shared moment, the impossible became real. Father and daughter, bound by fate, reunited after years of separation, ready to face the future together. If this story moved you, remember that life often works in mysterious ways. Share this video with someone who needs hope. Never forget the miracles we long for sometimes arrive when we least expect them. The days following the revelation were surreal. David Parker, the man who had once measured life in deals, profits, and contracts, now measured it in moments with Claire. Moments of laughter, moments of tears, and moments of quiet understanding. Claire was learning to navigate this new reality as well. The truth about her parentage, about the woman she had loved from afar in her dreams, and about the father she had never known, had turned her world upside down. Yet, alongside the upheaval, was a sense of home she had never felt before, presence that filled the void she had carried for years. David and Claire spent hours talking, sharing memories, dreams, fears, and hopes. They discovered similarities that went beyond appearance, ways of thinking, humor, and even quirks of expression that mirrored the mother Claire never fully knew. These small connections woven together created a bridge between past and present, loss and rediscovery. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the city, David took Claire to a quiet park. It was a place he often visited in solitude, a refuge from the demands of wealth and business. But now, walking there with her, it became a sanctuary for healing. Claire, he said softly, I know we can't undo the years we lost. I know there's pain, confusion, and maybe even anger. But I promise you the Sai will be here for you. Every step, every choice, every moment. Claire looked up at him, eyes glistening with emotion. I've spent my whole life searching for something I couldn't name. And now I see it. You were always part of me, even when I didn't know it. They embraced this time without hesitation. It wasn't just a hug, it was a reclamation of years stolen by circumstance. A promise to build a life together. In a quiet acknowledgement that love can survive absence, distance, and time. Over the following months, their bond strengthened. David introduced Claire to the world he had built not to show off wealth, but to offer experiences, guidance, and stability she had never known. Business meetings became lessons in strategy, but more importantly, they were opportunities for shared growth. Claire, in turn, brought David a perspective he had long forgotten: joy in the little things, laughter without agenda, and the importance of human connection beyond transactions and titles. They discovered a rhythm together, balancing the weight of the past with the hope of the future. Through it all, David reflected on Laura, the woman who had unknowingly given him this second chance. He realized that while he could never undo the pain of their separation, he could honor her memory by nurturing the bond with her daughter. In a way, Laura's spirit lived on in Claire, guiding them toward a future filled with love and understanding. The first milestone came when David and Claire sat down to look through Laura's old journals. Her words, once full of hope, love, and longing, revealed the depth of her love for David and the sacrifices she made to protect Claire. Reading them, Claire understood the strength and courage of her mother, while David felt the bittersweet reminder of what had been lost and what had been found again. Together, they laughed at Laura's quirky notes, cried at her heartache, and marveled at the legacy she had left behind. In those moments, the past and present intertwined, and a family long divided by circumstance finally began to feel whole. The journey wasn't without its challenges. Trust had to be built gradually. Memories had to be reconciled. And emotions, complex, raw, and sometimes overwhelming, needed patience and understanding. But every step, every conversation, every shared moment deepened their connection. Claire learned to call David Dad naturally, without hesitation or fear. David learned to listen, to be patient, to let go of control, and simply be present. In each other, they found not only family, but friendship, mentorship, and unconditional love. One evening, as the city lights shimmered on the river below, David turned to Claire and said, "Life can be cruel, and it can be unfair, but it can also be miraculous. We lost years, but we found each other. And now, nothing else matters except what we choose to build together. Claire smiled, tears falling freely. I believe that too, Dad. We have a chance to make every day count, together. And so, they did. David and Claire began creating new memories, simple breakfasts, walks through the city, small adventures, quiet evenings filled with conversation. The pain of the past lingered, but it no longer defined them. Instead, it became a foundation, a reminder of resilience, love, and the extraordinary ways life can surprise us. In David's penthouse, in the boutique where they first met, and in the quiet corners of the city, they discovered that family is more than blood. It is connection, trust, and the willingness to stand together through every storm. Their story, once marked by loss and longing, had transformed into one of hope, healing, and unconditional love. It was proof that even when life takes away everything, it can return something far greater: second chances, rediscovered bonds, and the joy of finally coming home. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Life is unpredictable, sometimes painful, but it also holds miracles in the most unexpected forms. Remember, the people we are destined to find often arrive when we least expect them. Cherish your loved ones, seek the connections that matter, and never give up hope, because life has a way of giving back what was lost in ways more beautiful than you could ever imagine.